Welcome to Creepy Corner Stories. They sit quietly in the corner, their glassy eyes watching, waiting. Some say they're just dolls, lifeless, harmless toys, but others whisper of strange movements in the night, of soft giggles in empty rooms, of cold, lifeless hands brushing against their skin. Are they cursed, possessed, or something far more sinister? Tonight, we delve into the terrifying world of haunted dolls, where childhood innocence turns into nightmare fuel. Keep the lights on, and whatever you do, don't let them out of your sight. Let's begin. Story: Robert the Doll, the Cursed Companion. In the early 1900s, a little boy named Robert Eugene Otto lived in a grand mansion in Key West, Florida. One day, his family's maid, a woman believed to practice voodoo, gifted him a strange doll. It was nearly 3 feet tall, stuffed with straw, and dressed in a sailor suit. The boy named it Robert, after himself. At first, Robert and his doll were inseparable. He talked to it constantly, treating it like a real friend. But soon, unsettling things began to happen. The family would hear Robert having full conversations in his room, his voice responding in an eerie, unknown tone. Objects would move on their own. Doors slammed shut. Robert's parents even claimed to hear soft giggles in the dead of night, only to find the doll sitting at the foot of their bed, its beady black eyes staring at them. The boy insisted it wasn't him, it was Robert. As he grew older, Robert Otto left the doll behind, but the haunting never stopped. Visitors to the house reported seeing the doll blink, shift positions, and even change expressions. Some said it whispered threats to them. Years later, Robert Otto died, and the doll was donated to a museum in Key West. But even behind glass, the terror continued. Visitors who mocked Robert or took pictures without permission reported accidents, bad luck, and eerie disturbances following them home. Letters of apology fill the museum, sent by those who dared to disrespect Robert, begging for forgiveness. To this day, Robert the doll remains in the museum, watching, waiting, and maybe still moving. Story: Annabelle, the doll that shouldn't move. In 1970, a nursing student named Donna received a raggedy old doll from her mother as a gift. It was just a simple stuffed Raggedy Ann doll, nothing unusual. But soon, Donna and her roommate, Angie, started noticing something strange. The doll moved on its own. At first, the movements were subtle, just small changes in position. But then, things escalated. Donna would leave the doll in one room and come back to find it in another. Sometimes, it would be kneeling on the couch, even though its soft body shouldn't have been able to hold that position. Then the notes appeared. Handwritten messages on parchment paper, something neither of the girls owned, were found scattered around the apartment. They read, "Help us" and "Help Lou." Lou was Angie's fiancé, and he hated the doll. He swore it gave him a bad feeling, a dark presence in the room. One night, he woke up to Annabelle sitting on his chest, staring into his eyes. He was completely paralyzed. Then he felt sharp, burning pain across his chest. When he finally broke free, he found claw-like scratches running down his skin. Terrified, Donna and Angie contacted a priest, who in turn called paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens quickly determined that Annabelle wasn't just a haunted doll, it was being manipulated by an inhuman spirit. It wanted something more than just moving around. It wanted a soul. The Warrens took Annabelle and locked it inside a special glass case in their occult museum, warning visitors never to taunt it. Even still, stories persist of those who mocked Annabelle, only to leave and face horrific accidents shortly after. To this day, Annabelle remains locked away. But who knows? Maybe one day, she'll find a way out. Story: Okiku, the doll that grows hair. In 1918, a young boy in Japan named Eikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his little sister, Okiku. It was a beautiful figure dressed in a traditional kimono, with delicate features and jet black hair cut into a bob. Okiku adored the doll, carrying it everywhere. She even named it after herself. Tragically, Okiku fell ill and died suddenly. Her grieving family placed the doll on their household shrine in her memory, praying to it daily. But soon, they noticed something strange. the doll's hair began to grow. At first, they thought it was their imagination, but as time passed, the once short bob had grown down to the doll's knees. They even trimmed the hair, but it always grew back. The family became convinced that Okiku's spirit had moved into the doll. They began to hear soft whispers at night, and sometimes the doll's lips would move as if trying to speak. As years went by, the family decided to pass the doll to Manenji Temple in Hokkaido, where monks continue to care for it to this day. Tests confirmed that the doll's hair is real human hair, but no one knows why it keeps growing. Visitors to the temple report feeling uneasy around Okiku, some swearing they've seen her eyes move or heard her faintly giggle. Despite this, the monks refuse to destroy the doll, believing that Okiku's spirit still lingers, watching. Story Mandy, the doll that cries at night. In 1991, a woman in British Columbia donated an old porcelain doll to the Quesnel Museum. The doll, named Mandy, had cracks on her face, a sinister smirk, and a strange energy that made the woman uneasy. She claimed that at night she heard faint crying from the doll, and objects would mysteriously move around her house. As soon as Mandy arrived at the museum, weird things started happening. Staff reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms, whispering voices, and sudden cold chills. Items in locked display cases were thrown across the floor overnight, and visitors claimed Mandy's eyes followed them as they walked by. One night, a museum worker was alone cataloging items when she heard a soft giggle behind her. She turned around, but no one was there. The only thing in the room was Mandy, sitting in her case, smiling. Some say Mandy is jealous of other dolls. When she was placed near them, they'd be knocked over or mysteriously damaged. Others believe she just wants attention. To this day, Mandy remains in the museum, where visitors still report feeling uneasy around her. Some say their cameras malfunction when they try to take pictures of her. Others leave, only to experience strange nightmares about the doll later that night. Is Mandy really haunted, or is she just waiting for the right person to take her home? Story Peggy, the doll that makes people sick. Peggy isn't just another haunted doll, she's a curse in porcelain form. Unlike other eerie toys, you don't have to touch or own Peggy for her to affect you. Just looking at her picture is enough to make people sick. Her story begins with a woman in the UK who owned Peggy but became convinced the doll was cursed. She suffered from horrifying nightmares, intense anxiety, and unexplained illnesses. No matter where she moved, the strange activity followed. Desperate, she gave the doll to a paranormal investigator named Jane Harris. But instead of the activity stopping, it got worse. Jane soon started receiving messages from people who had simply seen a photo of Peggy online. They claimed to experience sudden nausea, severe migraines, uncontrollable panic attacks, electronic malfunctions, strange figures appearing in their homes. One woman even suffered a heart attack minutes after watching a video of Peggy. Another saw visions of a pale, gaunt woman in her dreams, the same woman others reported seeing. No one knows exactly what spirit is attached to Peggy, but many believe she holds something dark and powerful. Paranormal experts warn people to never disrespect her, never taunt her, and never stare into her eyes for too long. Story Letta the Gypsy Doll, the doll that screams. In the 1970s, an Australian man named Kerry Walton discovered something terrifying beneath an abandoned house. He had returned to his childhood town to face his fears, but instead he found a dusty wooden doll buried under the floorboards. The doll had a grotesque carved face, glassy eyes, and real human hair. Something about it felt deeply wrong, but instead of leaving it behind, Kerry took it home. That's when the nightmares started. Kerry's children woke up screaming, saying the doll whispered to them at night. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut by unseen hands. Visitors reported feeling overwhelming sadness and fear near the doll. Some even claimed to hear soft crying. Then came the worst part. One night, Kerry heard scratching sounds coming from the doll's storage box. When he opened it, he swore he saw the doll's mouth move, as if it were trying to speak. After researching, Carrie learned that the doll was over 200 years old, likely made by a Romanian gypsy who had carved it to house the spirit of a lost child. The locals gave it a chilling name, Letta Me Out. To this day, Letta remains in Carrie's possession, and the activity hasn't stopped. The doll is known to shift positions on its own, make low moaning noises, and even cause animals to panic. Story Joliet, the doll that kills sons. For over 4 generations, one family has owned a doll named Joliet, a seemingly ordinary baby doll with piercing black eyes and a tragic curse. The nightmare began with a woman who received Joliet as a gift while she was pregnant. At first, nothing seemed wrong, but then her newborn son died mysteriously at just 3 days old. Strangely, she still heard the sound of a baby crying in the night, even though her child was gone. Then, the curse continued. Each woman in the family who inherited Joliet would give birth to 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. But each time, the son would die at exactly 3 days old. The doll remained in the family, and with every passing generation, the eerie cries grew louder. Family members swore they could hear multiple babies wailing inside the doll at night. Some believe the souls of the lost sons are trapped inside Joliet, forever crying for the lives they were never allowed to live. No matter what they do, the family cannot get rid of Joliet. She has been passed down from mother to daughter, each knowing that when they bear children, they will lose their son, just as the curse demands. Story Pupa, the doll that remembers. Pupa was no ordinary doll. She was given to a young Italian girl in the 1920s and quickly became her most treasured companion. The girl claimed Pupa was alive, talking to her, comforting her, and even moving on her own. She kept the doll for her entire life, bringing it everywhere, even as she grew into adulthood. Before she passed away in 2005, she whispered to her family, "Pupa will always be with me." But after her death, Pupa's behavior changed. The family reported strange occurrences. Pupa's glass eyes seemed to follow them around the room. At night, they would hear tapping on the glass display case where she was kept. Sometimes, they found the case unlocked, even though no one had touched it. The most terrifying part? One day, the family noticed something shocking. Pupa's once expressionless mouth had changed, now curled into a small, sinister smirk. Some believe Pupa is haunted by the spirit of her original owner, forever bound to the doll. Others say she's something much darker, something that remembers everything, and is waiting for the right moment to escape. Thanks for watching. Remember, dolls are meant to bring comfort, to be companions in childhood, but some hold secrets far more sinister. They watch, they whisper, they wait. Maybe they're just toys, or maybe there's something else entirely, something trapped, something cursed, something that should never have existed at all. So the next time you see an old doll at a thrift store, a forgotten toy in the attic, or one that just doesn't feel right, ask yourself, is it really just a doll, or is something looking back at you? Sweet dreams, if you can sleep at all.